You're listening to the Skylight Books podcast. We're an independent, general interest bookstore putting great reads in the hands of people in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. Hosted by resident Skylighters, we're here to bring you new and exciting author conversations, group reads, and bookseller chats. Happy listening.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to Skylit. This is the Skylight Books podcast, and I'm your host for this episode, Justin Reamer. Today, we're so thrilled to welcome Rob Sevier to talk about his book, Stay Cool, Madonna. Rob is the co-founder of the Numero Group, a record label that specializes in rediscovering obscure music from the 1960s through the 1990s. In the nearly 19 years that the label has existed, it has created over 300 unique releases and been rewarded with 11 Grammy nominations. Rob himself has 6. Rob is currently a member of the Chicago Grammy Chapter Board of Governors. He has also produced projects or written liner notes for numerous other labels, Now Again, Drag City, Locust Music, Dusty Groove, Lawaka Bop, Cali Tex, and Chocolate Industries, amongst others. His passion projects also include this art book of fan mail sent to Madonna in the 80s and 90s, international DJ gigs, and regularly touring Japan and Europe. Thanks for being here, Rob.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. And so the book, Stay Cool, Madonna, has a little intro that you wrote. And if you would, could you please read that for us?
I would be happy to read it. I did write it. So I'll get more into the details behind this, but this is what I wrote. And reading it now is funny because I actually don't really even remember writing it. I mean, I did. I know I wrote it, and I know, and reading it feels very much like my writing, but I'm kind of actually surprised. Okay, here it is. The details don't really matter. Some colorless office with some dreary acronym that certainly included an A for agency or association or affiliate housed these works at the behest of the International Madonna Corporation until they were no longer contractually obligated to. This accidental trove of visionary outsider art was quite literally rescued from the garbage shortly after the business entity that is Madonna parted ways with her management company of nearly a decade. This is a unique document of the impression that the Madonna Messiah left on the collective international psyche during the late 1980s and through the 1990s. Whether or not you like Madonna's music isn't really that important. I mean, you should. It's all pretty great during this period. But this is the sort of document that tends to be cloistered away from the public eye. It's the overdose victims who took too much of what was intended to be consumed only superficially at a time when the reach of a megastar now extended into every aspect of everyday life and evening entertainment. To quote Teresa, "My life got destroyed because of your force." That's a piece in the book. Mm-hmm. That pretty much sums up the experience of everyone included here. Primarily, you will find the work of people who do not consider themselves artists. Only through the magnitude of Madonna's supernova-like intensity do they find themselves divinely inspired.
I mean, you talk about it, basically, all this stuff in here basically getting trashed. How did you get it? How did you get it?
So I got it, interestingly, I mean, once you're digging through the trash, you're going to find all manner of stuff. So mm-hmm. I tend to be more of a record collector, and I'm always on the hunt for master reels. And I got it from a record. I got all this material from a record dealer, in fact, a guy named Anthony, an artist named Anthony Pearson, who was for a number of years a really kind of a wild personality of a record dealer and record collector. And it was kind of funding his life while he got his art career off the ground, which now is quite off the ground. He's pretty respected and known in some circles. And I got it from him because he was going through a storage unit and had shoved it into there at one point after not knowing what to do with it. And so I just got it all. I said, just send it all to me. So he got it from the guy who, salvaged it. And, he was kind of just, he was just out there. He was known as the kind of guy who could handle such a collection. And so it ended up in his hands. And partly because he lives at the uh, intersection of art and music. This was something that fell into his lap. He just, it just wasn't quite something he could do with.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of fascinating because it's not like it, thinking of the movie Slacker, it's not like Madonna's pap smear. It's not like something she actually probably even saw or touched, but it's like all this stuff that was sort of reflected at her. So it's kind of odd that someone had the wherewithal to save any of it. Um, did you like looking at it, were you just like, this is cool, or when did the light click on like, oh, this could be something?
For me, as soon as I even heard what it was,
Mhm.
because there's not, part of this comes from the fact that I deal with such low level um, artists in the sort of like not artistically low level, but as far as the amount of respect and compensation they've received, they're exist at a lower level. It's this kind of document is insanely rare. I mean, find any other trove like this. As soon as it's enters the black hole of an artist's sort of like quote unquote PO box. I mean, none of this stuff is a real PO box.
Mhm.
It disappears. It's shredded. It's not. This is not something that you can get. This doesn't exist for other people. Interestingly, there's a similar book called Love Letters to the Beatles that was published obviously in the 60s, and it just contains a very small handful of love letters. I mean, we're talking like the whole book has like 25 letters.
Oh wow, okay. Um, yeah, and it's amazing, like going through the Stay Cool Madonna book, like just the variety and like how far it come, like literally all around the world. You have a great section right in the beginning that's just all these airmail envelopes from like Ethiopia, Thailand, etc.
And they're
Um,
beautiful.
yeah. And
They're
it's
beautiful.
also interesting because I wonder where they're writing to, because so many people have the same weird misspelling of Madonna, Louise, Veronica, Chacon. Like there's so many ways that people have butchered it around.
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's fascinating. Um, yeah, well, I wonder like because with the releases for Numero Group, like quite often you'll have kind of very nice supplementary booklets that have the pictures and the flyers and the stuff with it. Like, um, I don't know, has that always been part of like music for you? Is the ephemera, I guess.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is it's interesting because this is the ephemera that is like should be the companion to Madonna's greatest hit. I mean, or some collection. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the lost notes, the crowdsourced sort of like devotional literature to Madonna. Um, and yeah, there's no place for this in anywhere else in the world. And it is intriguing. So to look at this book and say, hey, I'd love to get this for any other artist. Name an
Mm,
artist. Can't do
hmm.
it. Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And since I did this and happened upon this, I've talked to a couple other artist managers who just kind of who I deal with, who deal with larger artists, and I'm like, what do you guys do with this stuff? And to it to the final number, they all just shred them. They just shred them.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. I mean, they're no one's interested. Now, granted, very little comes in sort of like print form relative to the way it used to be,
Yeah.
but it's still, fan mail is still a thing. Physical fan mail is still a thing, and none of it ever gets to the artist. It's shredded basically as soon as it comes in the door.
Oh
I mean,
wow.
it's actually considered. I mean, in depending on who you ask, I mean, it's considered somewhat of a threat. I mean, and I will say, one note that I should make as far as the curation, we pretty much got, there's a couple people in here who are little sort of like on the fringe of this, but we eliminated anything that sort of like threatened rape or was extremely misogynist. I didn't really want that to be part of this story. Now, there's a couple really absurd people who just seem very full of themselves, and they're just kind of like, hey, obviously we're going to be together. So, that's the vibe of a couple. Like, I was okay with that vibe, but we did, and because there is that in here. You've got this sort of like guilty conservative, like slut shamer archetype who's like has to let Madonna, he's like clearly obsessed with Madonna, but has to let Madonna know that she's an irredeemable slut,
Right.
that kind of thing we cut, I don't, there's no room for that. I mean, it kind of has that W. Somerset. Have you ever read Rain by, I believe it's Somerset Maugham? I mean, it's basically this preacher thinks he's going to convert this prostitute and he ends up raping her. And in this, they're both stranded on this Polynesian island. It's a great story. But it is, that's kind of, you get that kind of force, that kind of energy in here. And there's just nothing, I had no interest in that. I wanted to get rid of that as much as possible.
Well, there are so many, like, revealing of so many different kinds of relationships that people are having with Madonna. Like, some are already sort of like talking to her as if they're old friends. Like, you don't mind if I call you Maddie.
Yeah.
Or even the guy that's like, can you believe that they've taken smoking off of airplanes, as though this was like a conversation they were having?
Yeah. Amazing.
But my thing is, it actually reminded me that I did once. It was Weird Al Yankovic, but I did once write a fan letter to Weird Al Yankovic
Yeah.
suggesting a parody for him, and
Oh,
like
wow.
looking at these like letters that have like people who've like even written lyrics to songs. It's like, oh my gosh, that does take me back to a moment where I was like 12 and I was like, I don't know, maybe Weird Al has time to read a letter from me and think that
I'll
funny.
be honest. If anybody has time to read his fan mail, or at least has the will to read his fan mail, it's Weird Al.
Right.
I mean, he is. Have you ever met him? Has he ever come into the
No.
Skylight? Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
maybe before my time, but no, I haven't had a chance to meet him.
Well, what's interesting. So here's a little Weird Al. There's no reason for you to watch this, but if you watch my, I did a. Are you familiar with the "What's in My Bag" series for Amoeba?
Oh, Amoeba, yeah.
So they did this. So I did a "What's in My Bag," and I was like, well, no one gives a fuck about me. So like I should actually turn this into like more of like a journalistic pursuit. So I turned my "What's in My Bag" into like a almost like a set of liner notes for "What's in My Bag," which is basically like where did this come from? What's the origin of "What's in My Bag?" And it turns out, you might enjoy this, that "What's in My Bag" was started more or less impromptu as sort of like an excuse to like meet and interview Weird Al, because Weird Al was in the store. And I guess, and it just like, everyone's just like, Weird Al's in the store, Weird Al's, and everyone's like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We got to talk to him. And so they're like, they basically, I think that there was the kernel of the idea before, but then they sort of was like, Weird Al was when it was like, this is the greatest celebrity of all time. We have to have an excuse to talk to him. And so they talked to him. And then, so after I found that out, then when I did meet Weird Al, I was like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but like the whole "What's in My Bag." And he was very aware of "What's in My Bag" as a concept and what it become. And he was pretty flattered to know that it was created for him, basically.
Wow.
And, but that's just the kind of response that he gets. I mean, meeting him is an incredible thrill, because he is as warm and thoughtful and kind as you would expect, someone like him to be. He lives up to the hype in every possible way.
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's on the other hand, not to be cheesy, but what do you think about Madonna these days? Do you think she has stayed cool?
I can't. It's that's an interesting question. I don't. I think she has, in her own way. I mean, she's a social media phenomena on some level still, and I think she kind of, like in her own weird way, she kind of gets it. Her like. I started the Madonna fan mail thing as an Instagram thing, and the only Instagram account naturally that we follow is Madonna. and so it's weird. Like, I don't follow her on my main account, but I do follow her in that context. And so I kind of see what she's about. And I don't, it's like, she always manages to sort of like find a place in whatever gestalt, like she's, I think that I do think she's savvy, and in her way has stayed cool. But I mean, this lives in such a separate world that it's hard for me to even connect the Madonna of this book with the Madonna of reality.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say I don't follow her music. I will say the last record I listened to by her was Confessions on a Dance Floor. And that's a great record, but that's also like 20 years old at this point.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I haven't really engaged in a while either. So I'm curious, like, how, like, a little bit of background, I guess, like, how did you get involved sort of in like being in this sort of crate digger underground or whatever, that led to Numero and led to you sort of knowing a guy who knows a guy who has Madonna stuff?
I mean, that's a long journey, I guess, but I think on a basic level, I found out about, I think that I've heard that the Grand Royal, I was talking about this a little bit recently. I mean, Grand Royal was a big influence, and are you familiar with the magazine Grand Royal?
No.
It was the Beastie Boys magazine, and
right.
it was a pastiche, but it sort of like celebrated all types of digging, so it would be a whole issue on, not a whole issue, but it would be like, these issues, the idea of going into something, going absolutely unbelievably deep into something totally mundane and like unacademic probably doesn't come from this magazine, but like there's 40 pages on Demolition Derby in an issue, and Spike Jonze, if I recall correctly, director Spike Jonze, I think gets his own Derby. I mean, they go like totally over the top in their research.
Oh, wow.
This is literally for a magazine that, I don't know, probably sold 20,000-30,000 copies. I mean, I really don't know what the press run of Grand Royal was, but I mean, I think it's 6 issues, and every issue is flawless and just a pastiche of so many different cultures. And like, it is, primarily, it's not just about digging for records or digging for VHS tapes or digging for comic books or any of that. It's sort of just about digging for like knowledge, for information. And, there was nothing there was no, there was another one that was like a Spike Jonze guide to the best hotel swimming pools you can break into in downtown LA. I think it was Spike Jonze. It might have been Ricky, the photographer dude. But I read those issues when I was in high school. There's a Thurston Moore article in there about 10, it's called like 10 transmissions from the Free Jazz Underground or something like that. And that article to me was like the ground zero of sort of like stepping up. I mean, I bought records, I dug for records on some level, but that was like, that at least set my sights on like, this is actually how deep the rabbit hole goes, because he presents these 10 free jazz records, and they're just like, I mean, I've since gotten most of them or had them at various times, but at the time it just seemed like absolutely so incredibly deep. And like, and so, but just the culture of crate digging around, samples and hip hop was for me the start of all that. And then, you get people who like made it, DJ Shadow, Dante Carfagna. I mean, these are people who made it seem incredibly cool, and beyond just like, as soon as you get into it, it's like they all, those are the people who taught me how to like laugh at like the grinders at the record show, but also still get what you went there for. I mean, it's like, it's a crazy world to enter, and you can't take it too seriously, even while this is the serious pursuit of so many people.
Yeah. And obviously you're a DJ, but do you still like DJ on vinyl, or how do you DJ?
I mean, I am only nominally a DJ, and yes, the only reason, I mean, I like to DJ because I like to go, I can do it in other countries or whatever for fun and have that as part of like the experience of traveling. I don't care that much, but absolutely I play all vinyl because that's what the people that are bringing me there want. That
Mm-hmm.
is what I bring to the table. I can't just show up with the laptop. That's not interesting.
Right.
And I usually, when I go, if I do a Japan tour, I'll bring a zine to sell. I'll bring, it's like I'll do other things to make it special, to make it unique, to make it an experience just for that time. It's not just about me playing records, but that can be a fun night. But it's not just about that. It's sort of about the culture as well.
Yeah. Is Yeah, this is a little bit nerdy and granular, but like, is that why Numero Group does so many like sort of pop-up stores and tours like that, just to sort of like I don't know, get into those cultures and see the people?
I would say that is probably the main part of it. I mean, it is, some of the pop-up shops are lucrative, but like it's actually crazy. I mean, it's a little beyond that because it does give you a chance to get in the mix with the people that are buying your records, which is, really important. It's hard to have those conversations any other way, and sometimes when you do have those conversations, it's just someone randomly emailing you, and that's very different than seeing someone in person, being able to like answer the questions that they have, and it really sincerely, really directly. There's no alternative to that.
Yeah.
It gets harder and harder for us to do those kind of tours, but they're still fun. I mean, we just did one in September, and it was a blast. Honestly, it was incredible to see people, to check in with people. That was kind of like the moment when the pandemic dipped
Yeah.
for it, before, I think before Delta, but definitely before Omicron. And we did one that was all outdoors, and it was neat. I mean, I was driving a 24-foot truck around the country and trying to
Oh,
figure out
wow.
where to park it. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't. Yeah, these aren't like, these are not. These are hardworking trips.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember how long ago it was though, but like when Numero took over that little space just on in Los Feliz, not far from where Skylight is.
Yeah.
I stopped in there. It was I don't know. Yeah, it's fun to be able to like not just be flipping through a website and actually get to like flip through the records and yeah.
I
Um,
mean, I mean that was our friend Sinai's store, and that was such a great location. And it actually kind of brought me into Skylight a bit more, which is just a store that I really adore. And it does occur. I did think of one thing because I recently revisited, just back to your question about, like, where does it come from? I actually think Dan Close, the cartoonist, is
yeah,
also probably like a little, not equally responsible, but he always presented a sort of pastiche of subcultures that appealed to me, and also, you can tell this is a guy who is a deep and insightful into subcultures. And there is a comic strip that I think he did in like 1986, and it was based on the guy that did all the like Crypt Records releases, and like I think, what are they called? I'm not a big garage rock collector, so I'm spacing on the name, but they're like From the Grave or something like that.
yeah.
Tim Warren is the guy's name. He did a comic strip in the 80s that I read 91, 92, like, before I was even in high school, where they go and interview a garage band and they tell this wild story. And then, at the end of it, they're like, you got to check out our new stuff. We're even better now. And they get up and they're playing a cover of We Built This City by Starship. And I was just, I mean, it's crazy because I read that long before I even had experience of interviewing a band, but it really did demystify the experience that would become very much part of my reality within a decade. I mean, I still read that strip from time to time. It's called Wild Night in Teen. What is it? I think it's called it's Wild Night in Tiger Town is what it's called. And
Okay.
it's a Lloyd Llewellyn story, which I think I don't have like insider information on this, but I get the sense that Dan Close has kind of distanced himself from all the Lloyd Llewellyn material. Are you familiar with that stuff? Am I talking
No, no,
Greek?
no. I do know Dan Close, some of his stuff like Ghost World and whatever, but I don't go that deep, unfortunately.
Lloyd Llewellyn was his 80s stuff, and Lloyd Llewellyn himself lives in this sort of like pastiche world of like exotica and like lounge scenes, and like I highly recommend it. I feel
Uh-huh.
like but it's also like pretty hard to even get like one of the cheap versions. You can collect the comics all the comics are pretty cheap. But it's a really fun world to visit. It's like fake hard boiled detective in this like just this like pastiche of tiki bars and exotica, and like it really is incredibly fun, and it's a little disappointing that like absolutely none of it is available. You can't I mean
Uh,
I can recommend it to someone, but I'm basically recommending that they go like spend a year trying to like track all these
right,
books down, but
right. That's the funny thing too, is that I feel like yeah, I was pretty young when sort of like the sort of 90s exotica resurgence came back. But then like actually right around the time that you guys put out your exotica compilation, I was like, this stuff's really good. And
yeah.
so now that you're saying that, I'm like, oh, that's kind of like right up my alley. And I'm like, now I might go down this hole.
I think you are qualified to go down the hole.
Uh-huh.
I think you'll be able to track down these books with relative ease. It's not for everyone. I actually probably have a dupe of one or two that I could send you. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, I mean, especially because like Esquivel, yeah, I mean, like that. I'm in the same. I mean, I'm 43, so I remember when those like Esquivel reissues happened in like I don't know, 94, 95. And those were, that was mind blowing stuff, and you could still get all the Les Baxter records you wanted for next to nothing.
Yeah.
Those were fun times. I don't think I really even like appreciated them as much as I should have. That wasn't
Yeah.
really my like core world, but as far as musical interest, but I did have a lot. I was impressed by discovering those, and it very much dovetailed with like the sort of Dan Close worldview at the time. So, which my favorite cartoonist. So yeah, I recommend that. I think if you like exotica and that world, well, one, I mean, I've got a couple more books coming that I'm pretty excited about that I think you'll like a lot too.
Oh, nice. What's in the pipeline?
I think the next thing that I've got coming out is this collection of a photographer named Lois, unknown photographer named Lois. She basically, I'm certain she's deceased now, but in Philadelphia in the 1970s, she was going around taking photos of um, the Mike Douglas show was shot in Philadelphia,
Hmm.
and she would basically stalk the Mike Douglas show and take photos of celebrities either with her or she'd just take a candid photo of them.
Oh, wow.
And it was it's a really cool series of photos, and it's some obscure artists and it's some very well-known artists, and some of them are like incredibly framed and some of them feel very haphazard. But I kind of map out the street where she takes all these photos. There's like basically two main blocks where she takes
Uh-huh.
these photos, and she's just stopping people on the street, because it doesn't matter if you're James Brown, you still, basically you're still walking from your hotel to the Mike Douglas show in the middle of the day, you
Yeah.
know,
There's a,
and
there's
and
a,
so
oh, I was just gonna say quick, there's a guy on Instagram now, excuse me. There's a guy on Instagram now, I think his handle is like Portroids, and he just
mhm,
has a Polaroid camera and he does that to people now. I think he goes to different of like he's not just staking out one show, but
yeah,
like and then if he can get them to stick around long enough, he has them sign the Polaroid, but sometimes it's clearly like snap and then like they
yeah,
they
yeah. Absolutely. Well, and it's interesting. I mean, it is a totally different culture now of celebrity, and that's what I think is fascinating about this book. It's I'm still, the working title is something like, like Celebrity Stalkings by Lois, like as Lois as the author. But I mean, and it's only, I only know her first name. I bought these off eBay as a set, and and it was just like, this is like a really magical moment in time that does a couple things. One, it connects you with that reality that celebrity culture was different, and it's really hard to convey how different it was. These photographs actually convey that,
Yeah.
And so what I did was I took newspaper quotes from newspapers at the time. So because at the time it was frequently the case, and this is very foreign. You're just in town doing a play, and you'll get on the Mike Douglas show. You're in town doing a couple nights at like the Coco Cabana or whatever, and you're on the Mike Douglas show talking about that, right? Entertainment even club entertainment was enough to just get you on, a nationally syndicated talk show.
Yeah.
That's pretty foreign, even just that, just a very different. It captures a very different world of celebrity and entertainment than we know today. And that's kind of what I'm trying to present with this book. So I take snippets from the newspaper of their, like, whatever their local appearance was, right? Because people didn't just come to town for the Mike Douglas show. They were on the Mike Douglas show because they're promoting something that they're also in town for, right? So what I did was I took the newspaper quote from that, and usually they're really like hammy, like really kind of corny, bits in the paper. Yeah. And then so pair that with the photos just to give this sense of it. And then, we just draw a little map of what we were able to I was basically able to map out the businesses on that block, on the basically 2-block section that's all right around where the Mike Douglas show was. And so there's a little map. So that's it. I mean, it's like a 90-page book, but it was really fun to put together.
That's great. When is that coming? Do you know?
I'm sending it off to the printers in about a month. So I don't know, 2-3 months.
Cool. And it's going to be like Stay Cool Madonna, where it's sort of like you are your publisher essentially.
Oh yeah. I'm not. Yeah, this is just fun. This is just a fun side thing for me.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. No, I'm just.
Then the next book after that I'm actually working on is like a book of like lounge ephemera, photos and ephemera from lounge artists, and it's similar in that it's sort of presenting a different world of entertainment. And it's not just photo, it's like it's from a large collection, and it's kind of just shows even down to teletypes and telegrams and letters, like what goes into the world of entertainment in the 60s and early 70s, because it really was such a different world. Your role, every town had many clubs that needed to have live entertainment. There's no such thing as a DJ, right?
Yeah.
And you've got club owners, and they're trying to get people out for a full night. They need a full night of entertainment. So it's like, if you as an entertainer can provide both comedy and music and a little dance, you're providing a whole night of entertainment. This is what these people are trying to like present. Is versatility. The number one, when you read their promotional material, the number one word you'll see is versatility.
Wow.
And that's why I think that the title of the book is just going to be versatility. I mean, that we're a little further off on that one, but it comes up all the time because everyone wants to show that they're a versatile performer, and it's interesting to someone like you or I, that we grew up in a world where like 4 bored dudes can get on stage and play for half an hour, and that's a show.
Right.
that you couldn't get away with that, and that was not a thing in 1966.
Yeah.
You had to bring it. You had to show up at the Coco Cabana with the whole show. You had to have a few jokes. You might even do a little card trick on stage. I mean, you really need a lot more than just like some songs that you wrote half-heartedly. Like this is
Right.
entertainment was serious business then. And that's the other thing, is I just want to show what that world was like, because that world is lost.
Yeah.
There's a little bit here and there that still exists, but it's basically lost.
Yeah, I feel like my parents would talk about or would say something like, "Oh, are you going out to the nightclub?" And I'd be like,
Yeah,
"Nightclub? No, I'm going to a bar where maybe someone is playing music." Like, yeah.
exactly. Yeah. It's crazy how like, lazier we are, and lazier our expectations are, as far as like a night of entertainment is just means so much less now. And it's hard to convey that. And it's not that, it's not that we don't have fun. And it's not that like, seeing some of the, these bands isn't like the greatest experience, but it's like, it is just fascinating how little we expect from like a night out now,
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I want to present with this, with this book. So the working title is Versatility, and I don't know if that's what it's going to end up at, but that's probably going to take another 8 or 9 months to complete, unfortunately.
Well, that sounds great too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Cool. All right. This has been excellent. Thank you, Rob, for talking with us.
Of course.
As always, you can come to Skylight Books at 1818 North Vermont Avenue in the Los Feliz neighborhood in LA, or you can check us out at skylightbooks.com. Please pick up Stay Cool Madonna, spelled Madanna, because that's how this gentleman chose to spell Madonna.
That's right.
But it's really great, and it's full color, and there's great art. Well, there's questionable art, and then there's some great art as well. But yeah, and thanks, Rob, for talking with me.
Anytime.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.